My name is Zeus Hernandez. I'm a UCLA student. I'm building Infinity Development, which is a forward-thinking real estate development firm. I'm also interested in the venture capital industry, the renewable energy space, artificial intelligence, and sports and entertainment as well. Today, we have a very, very special guest on our podcast, Ajay Nwosu. He's the CEO of Teqball, investor in 27 plus companies, a global entrepreneur. Ajay is a world-class operator and investor with a global perspective, having lived across 4 continents. From aerospace engineering to global sport innovation, he blends analytical thinking with deep emotional intelligence and discipline as well. He currently leads Teqball as CEO while investing in high-potential startups and mentoring the next generation of leaders. Ajay, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
Excited to be here.
Yes, sir. So just to have the audience, get to a little bit more, know more about you and your background, let's just start with your early influences growing up across 4 continents and how that shaped who you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at kind of the tapestry of my thinking and where I've grown up across 4 continents, that's an anomaly in many ways.
That's right.
It's not ubiquitous in today's society, right? And so that shaped me in many different dynamics in the sense that when I look at crossing borders and cultural relevance, especially when you do business in today's society, I see it as a superpower in what I do today. And in many ways, it becomes more of an antidote into kind of my thinking and the future as well. Because my past experiences in growing up, whether in Saudi Arabia, in England, etc., when I travel or I do business in those parts of the world in today's society, I'm able to put myself in that mindset of the person sat across from me who's from that country or continent. And so that makes it a lot more easier. I mean, business is relationships at scale.
That's right.
That's really it. So it shaped me in that form from a business perspective, right? I'm able to be malleable. That's a word I would use. And then the second part is when I look at the ability to solve a problem, right, and understand my own thinking and other people's thinking. Right. The reality of the world today is we cannot disagree.
Right.
We have an issue with disagreeing with each other. We think in binaries. It's you're wrong and I'm right. Versus, hey, by the way, we could both be right here. And I always say intelligence is the ability to hold 2 opposite thoughts at the same time. I think my upbringing has allowed me to do that.
Okay.
And understand that.
And how do you think that growing up across these 4 continents, it shaped you as a person? Like, do you think it gave you like a different perspective, not in terms of business, but as an individual? Yeah,
absolutely. Me, the human, I think it's allowed me to create empathy at scale for other humans and also be a tremendous leader. I think when I look at myself in terms of high integrity and also just being a leader at scale, that's really, really shaped me. And that's a huge part of it.
That's amazing. So I know that you grew up in these 4 different continents and then you had all these different experiences. Was there any pivotal moment in your life that changed your direction or your mindset as to like who you became today?
Yeah. I always say, and I sometimes reference, I think in previous podcasts, if you've heard me before, a book I read called Einstein's Dreams.
Okay. And
that was a book I read when I was 14 years old that kind of shaped and changed the trajectory of kind of my thinking.
What was that about?
And state of mind. It's a story about a series of micro stories all centered around Albert Einstein and around relativity in time. And essentially, in this one world, there is 2 types of people. There's people who put things off because there's always time to do it, and time's infinite in this world. And there's people who want to get things done and stack skills in the infinite amount of time possible.
Yeah.
And so I read that when I was 14 and really, really stuck with me. I always say there are demarcation points in your life as you look through a tapestry of your life. And that was one demarcation point where I felt that I had a choice. I had to kind of, do I want to stack skills across a tapestry in my life, or do I just want to put things off? And so that was really what really shaped me in that cadence.
Amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. I've had plenty of great experiences reading books as well, so that's awesome.
Do you have a favorite?
Oh, do I have a favorite? Yes, I would say Think and Grow Rich.
Okay.
by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, it's a great book.
It is a really great book.
It's a great book.
And another book I would say would be The 33 Strategies of War.
Okay.
That's a great book as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to touch over now more to your career in like Teqball. Like, how did Teqball come into your life? And then what did you see, like, what's the competitive advantage that it has right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I come from a more engineering background, and I think
Aerospace, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
my mind operates in that field. Teqball came into my life back in 2018. I met my two co-founders, and essentially by proxy, they had asked me if I wanted to be involved. At the outset, I said no. And then after further conversations, agreed to kind of the challenge. I saw it as an adventure. I think it's I always say it's almost a moonshot in many ways, because where else in your life will you take a sport that is so nascent and take it towards the Olympic level? I love the vision around it, which is, hey, how do we get this sport, which is a micro sport, into the Olympic Games? So it really has taken me on a journey around the world, because I've traveled to some incredible countries, met some amazing humans that I never would have even encountered just through sports in general, outside of just Teqball. So I think for me, it's something that as we look to grow, the sport itself has afforded the ability. I always say sport has the ability to cross boundaries and create bridges for people.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, that's what it's really offered me, and that's what it's offered others based on events we run and different things that we transcend.
What were some of the early challenges that you guys faced when scaling this company or when starting out?
Yeah, I mean,
because I must imagine there was a lot.
Yeah, no one knows what it is, right? I always say, hey, they ask me what I do or what I have done and what I've built, and I say Teqball, and I have to pull out a video every time. And the reaction usually is, oh yeah, I've seen that. And after that, it's okay, I've seen that on Instagram, which is where obviously based on the sport, it's completely ripe for social media. And so I think for us, the big thing is, as we continue to grow, is really social media has kind of been a cornerstone of our growth. And the challenge we face is essentially, how do we make the sport and hyperbolize it on a global level? And how do we ultimately have 7+ billion people know about what we're building? And the quickest way to do that is word of mouth, social media, and television. That's the quickest way. And so for us, it's really kind of brokering broadcasting deals on a global level, creating more influence, and whilst building community, right? And so,
That was actually going to lead to my next question, which was, how do you see Teqball's future as a global movement? So you answered that perfectly. Yeah. So now I want to dive into entrepreneurship, and I know that you're invested in like a bunch of different brands, like over 27+ companies. Like, how did you even come across doing that? You know, it's a lot.
Yeah, you know, it's rather interesting. So I have a different take when it comes to investing than most traditional investors. And also my take is, obviously I've built a company. And at the same time, I've invested in companies. So I understand the minutiae and the day-to-day dynamics of being a founder and growing something that's really, really hard, because Teqball's really hard. And then at the same time, I started angel investing in 2017. I came across and met a founder that I believed in and backed, and ultimately actually he's going through a transaction right now for an acquisition for the company.
That's amazing.
And it was an amazing company out of Silicon Valley. At the time, I believed in it. I think I was the second or third investor. And it was a risk at the time. I put a decent amount of money into the company, and I helped him, and I made some introductions. And at the same time from there, I used that as a litmus test almost. And I really enjoyed that process, because what I enjoyed about it is because I got a front row seat to what he was building. I got a front row seat, and at the same time was able to introduce him to several other folks within my network around the tapestry of sports. The company was around sports, health, and wellness.
That's amazing.
Around
That's
the
cool.
tapestry of sports. And then I saw it as a fast track MBA for myself as well. And essentially, instead of going to school and paying six figures for an MBA, I was just like investing in these companies and learning and looking at different balance sheets. Different balance sheets, looking at the performers, the P&Ls, and everything else, and making my own judgment. And I've made mistakes, and of course, and then ultimately you have some wins. The goal is always to win more than you lose, and that's just life. Yeah.
Do you have a certain, I would say, philosophy when you're investing in these companies, or like people that you look for?
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very founder focused.
Okay.
I think, as I always say, it's a jockey, not the horse. I've seen you can have the most amazing product in the world, but if you're not of high integrity, right, don't have a good work ethic, and also from a personality set standpoint, don't understand the dynamics of kind of the market in terms of what you're building.
Okay.
Right? The reality as a founder, you're trying to pull the future into now.
Yeah.
Right. And what I mean by that,
great.
by pulling the future into now, is you're trying to predict what the future will be from a market perspective and making changes in real time in iterations. We talk about 10,000 hours, Malcolm Gladwell, right? But the reality is, as a founder, you're making 10,000 iterations at scale. You're like iterating, failing, and changing things at scale. And your ability to do that in real time quickly is something I look for. And then at the same time, obviously, their ability to communicate and present. I think fundraising is a huge part of being a founder in today's society, and fundraising storytelling at scale. And if you can't tell compelling enough story about what you're building, who you are, and where you're going, it becomes harder and harder to raise capital. And so that's a huge emphasis for me as well. And then I think the integrity part is huge, right? Are you a good leader? Are you able to kind of just be honest with people versus sugarcoat things and just be direct with people? And that's something I look for. So outside of the product.
Outside of the product itself, yeah.
Yeah.
How did you go about raising capital if you were ever in that role when you were in Teqball or like any of your industries?
Yeah, we were fortunate enough for Teqball. We didn't raise capital.
Okay.
Yes. So I had one of my co-founders that was incredibly successful and was able to help us at the very beginning from a financing perspective, and then helped us grow from there. But I have my sort of metrics as to how I would do that. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I know you're also really big on fitness, mindset, and discipline. That's an area that, it all encompasses me and who I am. I grew up playing basketball, and right now I went running this morning, early in the morning, and I've always been a big believer in discipline equals freedom, by Jocko Willink. So I want to talk more about that. You mentioned your mind is a laboratory, not a library. Can you explain what that means to our listeners?
Yeah. So I referenced 10,000 hours in constant iteration. I believe that as human beings, our goal is to adopt information and consistently learn. And then once we get that information, we test it out in real time. That's what I love to do. Like if I learn something from a podcast, from a book, I take notes on my phone. And then I try it out the same day or the next day. Even ideas for companies. I've been fortunate enough now that I'm in a position that obviously if I have an idea, I can stress test it, right? And that requires capital, and that requires engineering. Right? And so I have some amazing engineers that I can go to and say, hey, by the way, I have this idea. I'd love to build this, and can you build it in the next 2-3 weeks? And they can kind of build the Figma, everything around it, and the wireframe and all the above. So I think for me, from a human perspective, too many of us pontificate. We over-strategize, and there's a lack of execution. And so what I mean by that is your mind is a laboratory. You should always be constantly experimenting the ideas you generate and the information you obtain.
So failing fast and failing forward and moving with speed.
Yeah. Napoleon Hill. Yeah.
So you said that you had engineers that could do things in like 2 to 3 weeks. Like how important has it been to, shorten the time span of your goals? Because I know a lot of people, they set goals for like, yeah, I want to do this like in 5-10 years. But then there's other people's, like, I think Peter Thiel, he mentioned something about reducing your,
how do you take a 10-year plan and make it happen in 6 months?
Exactly. Like what's your take on that?
Yeah. So, that's one of my favorite quotes. And I'm a big believer that you should always take your thoughts to court. When you have an idea, take that thought to court. And what I mean by that is ask why.
Okay.
That's the number one question. Well, why am I doing this? And does it actually enrich other people other than myself?
So it has to be all purpose driven? Yes.
For me, at this point in my life, it's purpose driven.
Okay.
For a lot of people, obviously, I think for many people, I see a lot of founders these days who raise capital because they want to build a company and then sell the company from an economic perspective. But for me, I think it's all about fulfillment, right? The game of life is fulfillment.
That's right.
And a huge part of fulfillment is it has to be impact driven.
Yes.
And you have to feel that fulfillment for yourself, but in service of others as well. And that's really important. But the Peter Thiel quote, and going back to that, I think it's compressing time. I'm a big believer in how do I compress time. And I would say that's one of my superpowers, the ability to ask the right questions that compress time. And I think when we talk about from an engineering perspective and ideas and stress testing those ideas, it's bringing those ideas to fruition, to reality, and then asking the right questions of, hey, I want to compress this. Instead of doing it in 3 months, can we do it in 3 weeks?
Right.
Instead of 3 weeks, can we do it in 1 week? And one of my favorite books is Elon's book, and he's someone
I've not read it.
Yeah, it's by Walter Isaacson. It's amazing. Just some of and that's something that he does in real time. I always say the introspective of information, extrapolating that information and then compressing it and saying, okay, well, how do we get this done in the quickest amount of possible?
Yeah,
because the sooner you compress time, the sooner you can fail, the sooner you can make mistakes, the sooner you can iterate and go again.
Okay. Yeah. I think a lot of founders, they get scared of making the mistakes and then saying like, oh, like what are people going to think? Others' reactions, but then they don't realize that you're supposed to fail in order to get the next iteration and keep on moving forward with their project.
Yeah, it's fear at scale. Yeah, everyone has fear. And I always say fear creates anxiety, and anxiety is unfocused fear. That's just the reality of it.
Action cures fear. That's the biggest thing that I've learned. So you touched a little bit about being purpose-driven versus economically driven when starting out in business as a founder. Do you think it's possible for people to do both at the same time?
Yes, I do.
Do you have examples that you could give? Because I want to learn this myself.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Examples in terms of companies or examples?
In terms of companies,
I think, listen, I'm at the point now that a lot of my investments in today's world are more so impact focused.
Okay.
I think in the last, in kind of the delta of the last 2 years, I'm more so focused on, well, okay, I probably have another, I don't know if I'm lucky, 50 years left on Earth, based on where I am in my age and life cycle right now. And what do I want those to look like? Right. And what do I want my legacy to look like? And so to answer your question in binary fashion, I think like anything that is impact, especially in the biotech industry.
Okay.
For instance, I'm currently, that's a world that I've kind of self-taught. I'm also autodidactic in that sense, but looking at a drug right now that slows down the growth of Alzheimer's, the growth rate in Alzheimer's.
That's amazing.
Yeah, there's several other drugs in that realm as well. Another industry I can give you is a company I'm looking at right now that essentially extrapolates water from the atmosphere in real time and processes that water and essentially via reverse osmosis. And the water is pH balanced 10 or more. So you can have this device that's like a liter and a half in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and you could just literally extrapolate water from the atmosphere. So that's a company there that they have a patent to technology that I think will do really well at scale. and can be used all over the world. And so that's one that I'm auditing right now. Another one is a company that uses concrete. Have created a formula to reduce the mixing process for concrete.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of wasted.
There's a lot of wasted.
A lot of wasted concrete in the world. I could go on. There's some robotics in the field of robotics as well. I think can help us in terms of care homes and later stage care in life. There's just a range of different things. Yeah.
So you mentioned that a lot of it was self-taught when you're entering into these new industries. How do you even go about auditing your time, like learning all these different skill sets, talking to all these different people? Because I bet it's a lot of bandwidth that you need to overcome. So how do you even go about doing that?
There's two things. There's YouTube University.
Okay.
As I like to say.
Yeah.
And then number two is finding the right people. I try and find subject matter experts in different industries.
Okay.
So I rarely invest in an industry I don't feel comfortable with. And then I teach myself enough that I'm able to regurgitate what the main points are, where the future's going in that industry, and also how I see fit in terms of added value for myself or other folks within that industry or adjacent industries. So, yeah.
And when it comes to auditing your time as well and your energy and your circle of influence, how important has that been for you when it comes to looking at new industries, new companies to invest in, and like new ventures to undergo?
Yeah, I always say most people don't realize this, but the weekends pull you forward. And so the weekend is really what I use to get myself ahead because my weeks are so busy. And I think I have kind of a methodology throughout my week as far as the way I take meetings and the way I follow up with meetings and the way I kind of systems and processes. But Sundays are usually my time for reading and learning about whether it's AI or robotics or different things. So I spend literally a couple of hours on a Sunday, open my laptop and I work or do different things. A lot of people, I think, neglect that and don't realize how powerful it is, whether it sets you up for the week and reduces that anxiety and stress of a Monday morning. And basically you could just go into your week into flow state.
Completely agreed. Yeah. That's so amazing. Where do you see the future of AI and robotics heading?
Wow. How long do you have?
Let's just say in terms of the sports industry and business, because that's what your specialty is in.
Yeah. I'm actually writing a book on this subject matter right now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But my thesis centers around as you look at the proliferation of AI as we move forward. I mean, AI is really electricity in today's world, right? And a lot of people almost ask, like, does your business have AI, or are you adopting AI? That's like asking, is your business on the internet?
Yeah, because AI, it's like it's needed now. If you're not using it, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And obviously, I think it's moving so fast. Every day I wake up, it's the delta and the rate of change at which it's moving.
Astronomical.
Is absolutely phenomenal, and I'm struggling to keep up. And I'm someone who like immerses myself. And so where I see it going within the sports realm is the ability for us to own our own data.
Okay.
And then license that data to big players. I mean, as I sit here, I'm wearing an Aura ring, right?
Yeah,
My data is captured on the application and on the ring, and then it's fed back to the top co and the company, which they use and then use it for predictive analysis, for large language models, learnings, etc. But my ability to be paid for my data is number one. Number two, I think the fans will have more control over sports. What I mean by that is the ability to bet in real time. Okay. You're already seeing it in many different sports right now. But the fact that, there's a free throw, I can bet right now, will he make it, yes or no? And that's already coming into prominence. I know two companies that have already built something of this nature around predictive analysis. So betting, I think, will be disrupted, that industry. Also, I think there's more data and stats that you can look at within athletes and drivers. I think now they're even creating, as you look at different sports, you're looking at a trimodal around sports, the ability for me to start watching a sport on my phone.
Okay.
Go home, and that same sport I'm watching on my phone translates to my TV. I can go to the cinema, and that sport is also
on the cinema.
On the cinema as well. I think that allows for the democratization of that. I think AI is going to accelerate blockchain technology. I also think, obviously, we're going to the age of agentic AI.
Okay,
right?
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. So that's vastly different from your standard AI.
Yes.
AI agents that can kind of automate and know workflows and in terms of who you are, what you do, and your predictive analysis, and the ability to have a fridge, for instance, and the fridge knows, okay, well, at this time of the month is when I like to have my avocados ordered, or I like to—
That's incredible.
Yeah, I like to have peanuts, walnuts, and everything else, and just orders it, and it shows up at my door in a standardized fashion, or realizes that, like, hey, I've run out of milk in my fridge, and just reorders milk without me even thinking.
That's so incredible.
Yeah. So, but the real question is, what happens to us as humans?
Yes, that's what I've been.
So
yeah. What do you think happens to us as humans? People have been saying that, robotics and AI, they're going to take over in 2040, 2050.
I think it's sooner than that.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's much sooner than that. I think it's much sooner than people realize. I think at least by 2035.
Wow.
You'll see a huge integration of robotics in everyday life.
And do you think it's going to affect everyone on an international level, or just starting off like in the main areas such as like the US, Europe, China, Japan?
If you look at the geopolitical landscape, as you cross borders, cultures change, right? And so I think from my prediction, I think, yes, certainly the US is kind of the mainstay when it comes to innovation. Obviously, China are right there with us, as I like to say there. And then at the same time, I think there's certain countries in the world who have a flag in the ground already. We're one of them. And so, yes, certainly, I think the US will be at the forefront of that technology, and the current regime want to make sure that occurs. And so that's the reality of it. I do think that us as humans, what happens is we're going through, obviously, the loneliness chapter right now, and that's an epidemic in our society. That's going to be accelerated even more.
Loneliness.
It's going to be accelerated even more. I think, and that's why we need community right now.
So agreed.
At scale.
Completely agreed.
And I think we have to find a solution for that. Otherwise, we're in big danger of. Suicide rates are up. It's something that's not talked about.
It's really scary.
A range of different things. Yeah.
Really, really scary. Do you think there's, any way to fix that, like in the future? Because I know a lot of people, like just in my experience in college, a lot of people just spend time by themselves, and then they're not in communities, they're not in sports, they're not in clubs, they're not getting out there. So obviously with AI and robotics taking over, it's like it can only get worse. So I don't know if you have any solutions that you see.
Yeah, I think the panacea is really community. And I see sports as a way of bridging that. I think as a life cycle of humans, you should have a constant community that of friends or other people, or immerse yourself in, whether it's a yoga, Pilates, etc. And a lot of us are introverts, And I think knowing thyself is really important. And the quickest way to change your thermostat is to go on a walk, call a friend, and also just immerse yourself in whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Whether via the Zoomification or teamification of today's world, immersing yourself and having dialogue with other people versus just sitting with your own thoughts. Self-containment is the quickest route to kind of, I would say, loneliness and depression, etc. So.
That's what a lot of entrepreneurs and new founders face. They face that loneliness path and all these, different feelings because they feel like, no one relates. You obviously need to put in a lot of hours. So this is asking you personally, what strategies do you use to stay grounded? Amidst all this turmoil that you're facing, you're always in meetings, always going to these different countries. You have all these things to do, these businesses to run, people to meet. How do you stay grounded amidst all the turmoil?
Yeah, most people know or don't know this, but I love yoga. Yoga is kind of my outlet. It allows me to think and be in my own mind. So that's one. I always try and at least get to a yoga class a week if I can.
Yeah.
Or if I'm lucky, 2 or 3. And then I work out every morning.
That's amazing.
I think, I love whether it's running or just my workouts early in the morning. It's something I don't miss. Whether I'm traveling, I try and make it happen. If I do miss it, I never miss 2 days in a row. That's like a rule. And outside of that, I think talking to friends and family and just catching up with just people in your life, high agency friends. I think you should always audit your friend groups, but I think just from a friends and family perspective, making sure that you're checking on the people you love. And I think that's really the basics of it. There's nothing, it's not really a complex quadratic equation around it.
Agreed.
It's more so, yeah.
And in terms of friends and family and relationships, how do you yourself like balance both working extremely hard while also having, that family time or so-called balance? Like, or do you even think there is a balance?
Balance is my word this year. I've always gone extremely hard, and extremely hard is subjective to everyone.
That's right.
But extremely hard for me is just a lot of cerebral horsepower.
Okay.
And putting my thoughts out there, and also when I said your mind's a laboratory, stressing and kind of testing my thoughts. When I look at balance, obviously it's a delta between your constant work, your constant thinking, and your constant actually outside of work.
Okay.
Like what keeps you busy, what makes you happy. And balance really is orchestrated or proxy to joy, right? It's like what brings you joy. Okay. I find joy in everything I do. I find joy in just working, right? Likewise, but that can be, that's unhealthy to a large degree.
Yes.
Right?
Agreed.
Sometimes. And then I find joy in working out. I find joy in, just going on a long drive. So I think for me, the way I find balance is personally taking more time for myself. Right. And outside of putting myself out there, I'm consistently asked, obviously, hey, do you want to jump on a Zoom call, take a look at this company, and just say no. That's a good way to find balance. I think too many of us feel the necessity to say yes or find it hard to say no. And I think just saying no, just because I just don't have the time or I don't feel like it. I think we need to kind of normalize that more in society. Just saying no to things. You don't have to say no and then creating an excuse. You can just say no and just say, hey, I just don't feel like it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And in terms of, this is going back to like, what's actually like, what steps that you do that take action, like, how do I phrase this? Do you think the type of work matters or the amount of work? Like, I know there's people who say like, oh yeah, I work like 22 hours throughout the day, but then there's people who work less hours, but they're more efficient with their time. Like, that's something I want to ask you about. Like, do you think the quality of your work matters, or it's more of the quantity in terms of like when you're starting out a company?
It's a quality.
Yeah.
Listen, I think work looks like different things for many people.
Yeah.
I think the output that you're putting out and the efficiency, I think it's quality and efficiency at scale. I've always said that a 10-minute meeting is real. We have this thing in society where we put 30-minute blocks on our calendar and it's just normalized. I sometimes put 30-minute block knowing that, hey, I finish that meeting 8 minutes in because I've said everything I need to say, and then I can give back 22 minutes to that person. So I think that's something we need to normalize. Too many of us do 30 an hour long meetings.
Yeah.
And I think that should be abolished in many ways.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who they also want to do these meetups in person when you could just call them over the phone to resolve whatever matter that you want to do. So
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I also think what enriches you.
Okay.
I think quality of work that enriches you. It's something I call spirulina for the soul versus fast food for your amygdala.
Oh my God.
When it comes to to obviously your quality of work and your output and how you're looking at that. And I think I work differently. I love micro breaks when I work. And so I get up in the morning, I'm not going to go through my morning routine because I'm not that guy who does that. But I get up in the morning, and one of the things that I do, obviously, I check the world isn't on fire, which sometimes it is. And then if I need to jump on my laptop, get some stuff done, and then I work out, right? And so that's a sprint for maybe 45 minutes for me, just to get some work done and then start my day in terms of my workout. And then hour-long workout, back to my laptop, and then maybe an hour-long sprint with a couple of short calls in between.
That's amazing.
And then take a break, and I may do something, go on a walk and take a walking call, and then come back and sprint again. So it varies. Each day is different. It just really and then sometimes I just cancel meetings if I don't feel like it. And I think I wouldn't encourage that for everyone, but I have the luxury now that I think I'm in a place that if I don't feel like orchestrating or executing a meeting and I'm not in the right mindset, I may just reschedule it. So, yeah.
So I want to wrap this up with some pieces of advice that you would give to our audience, like looking back on your career and everything. So I know that like you've done a bunch of different things. You've invested in all these companies. Obviously now you're the CEO of Teqball. Do you think there's anything different that you would have done if you had the knowledge that you have now when you were younger?
I would have failed faster.
Yeah.
Even though I did fail, and there's many failures I have, but I would have failed faster.
Okay.
And don't care what people think.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us go through a tapestry of life caring what people think, and that's a jail cell of life.
How do people get over that? I know a lot of people personally who struggle with that. Like, what is this person going to say? What are my parents going to say? What do my peers think of me? Like,
the reality is, again, take your thoughts to court.
Okay.
And ask yourself, why do you care what people think? Why is always a question you should come back to.
Okay.
And then at the same time, I always say those who you think or get judgment from, just eliminate yourself from them. If you're talking to your friend twice a week who is constantly asking you the question as to, hey, well, why are you doing that? And like, why are you doing this? Talk to them once every 2 weeks, you know? And I think we should always kind of audit our inner circle and those around us. And at the same time, I think the biggest thing is I always reference around fear is finally exiting average reality, right? I think from that degree, think of it from that component that, hey, on the other side of fear is something much more magical that we often don't realize until we cross that chasm. But that loneliness chapter that you go through, right? Because there's a chapter where you don't feel adequate in terms of you're so loyal to a constant group of friends, but you know you need to leave that group of friends that constantly don't give you the right mindset to execute what you want. And to cross that chasm to get to the other part, to this group of friends, right? There's this loneliness chapter in between. And there's a gap between obviously our thought process and our reality, and that gap is called our emotions. And that emotion is a loneliness chapter. If we can overcome that, it's so much more powerful on the other side.
How did you overcome that? And
that's for me as a human, a lot of overcoming it was two things. Number one, getting rid of the friends that didn't serve me. And number two, putting yourself in rooms that you want to be in.
Yes.
The quickest way to pull the future to the present is to be around people that you want to be like.
That's right.
And I think in today's world, a lot of my friends are kind of way more successful than I am.
Right.
I'm usually at least successful in a room sometimes, and 65 plus years old and everything else. But I love the conversations I have with them.
You love learning.
I love learning.
Love
learning,
too.
you know, because that's the quickest way for me to kind of pull the future to the present. So
completely agreed. That's something that I've been doing too. Like I've separated myself from a lot of my friends, and I'm putting myself in these rooms with people who are miles ahead of me doing all these great things. And it's like, how fast can I pull the future towards the present? And then that's great. So Now, moving on, another question that I have for you is, what's like one principle or one philosophy that you live by? And yeah.
I think in today's world, a lot of people, whether you look at the psycho and demos, one of my biggest principle and philosophy is doing the job before you get the job is the best way to get the job.
Oh, I've never heard that one.
And that's really powerful because a lot of people apply for roles, or I get inbounds from LinkedIn, or they'll reach out to me and for mentorship, or they'll do something of that nature. But creating some sort of a deck of some sort versus saying, hey, I'd love for you to mentor me. Create a deck in terms of what you've already built, in terms of how you can add value to what I'm doing, right? Or anything of that nature, or auditing a company that you're applying for and saying, hey, by the way, I just scanned your website. These are areas that you can improve on. And then I went on Fiverr and did X and created a deck for you guys, which I'd love to present to you in real time. It's so much more powerful than just a cold email.
That's right.
And hoping for a response. I think showing and providing value, which is doing the job before you get the job, is so much more powerful.
That's so incredible. I really like that piece of advice. Yeah, I'm applying that for sure. So I know earlier you mentioned that obviously you're now more purpose-driven in everything that you do, and you talked about legacy. Legacy is something that I also want to leave behind. I come from a first-generation family, and I'm an only child as well. So leaving a legacy behind, that's one of the biggest things that I've always lived by. My parents have instilled in me. So what steps are you taking now to leave a legacy, and what type of legacy do you want to leave behind?
I want to be remembered as a person who pushed people off the cliff of life and made them know that they could fly. And I think a huge part of that is empowering people via their mindset, right? And it's been on podcasts, it's been on TV, it's writing books, it's things of that nature that helps you understand that, hey, by the way, you have one life to live.
Right.
And at the same time, in 20 years' time, you would wish that you'd be back in the same moment at this exact same age. So why not utilize it to the fullest of your ability? And try things that are hard, and also take risks as well. And so I think that's sort of a legacy I want to live, to push people off the cliff of life and make them realize that they can fly.
That's so incredible. I love hearing that. Everything that you just said just resonated with me. For me, my biggest legacy that I want to leave behind is just to be an inspiration, because I see all these great people such as yourself, you're giving me so much motivation, and I just feel so empowered talking to you right now. So it's really great. And just for me, it's the biggest thing. It's being an inspiration to other people. And how am I doing that? Just, being on these podcasts, talking to all these different people, documenting my journey and starting these businesses. So it's incredible. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you. I think one of the things I really realized was basically your charisma and the way you came across and the way you hold yourself. And I think from that degree of understanding, that's very rare for someone of your age. And at the same time, I think if you keep putting yourselves in the right room and yourself in the right rooms, there's the osmosis that occurs from that. So I'm excited for you.
Definitely. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice now that you would give to our younger audience, like people who are in college, people who are barely starting their company? What's something that you could give them to help fast track their progress and get them to the point that they want to be in life?
Yeah, I think spend more time with the older generation.
Okay.
That's number one. That's a lot of people right now. That's a hard one because obviously that's interesting.
Yeah.
And learn to ask the right questions.
Okay.
I think questions are really powerful.
Can I say something? I know a lot of people who get in the right rooms, but they don't ask the right questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think questions are really powerful. I think a lot of us in society today don't ask the right questions when we're in the right rooms, to your point. But I think asking the right questions can be an unlock. When we speak, we cannot help but reveal ourselves. And so it's really important that we kind of go through that tapestry. And I think that's one of the marks or the advice I would give to younger generation. So
I appreciate it, AJ. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
It's been a blast.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you so much. I'm sure our listeners are going to find this super valuable. So
Yeah.
I appreciate it. You guys make sure to follow me on all my socials, follow AJ, and stay up to date with Teqball. Just, be in tune in all his ventures that he's doing. He's a great guy. Be sure to follow him, you guys. So
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you, AJ. Until next time, you guys, God willing, primeramente Dios.
All right.
See you guys. Thank you.